Now, Guinea's junta has ordered government members' passports to be seized and their bank accounts frozen after dissolving the administration for unknown reasons. The military, who took power in a September 2021 coup on Monday, decreed the dissolution of the government, which has been in office since July 2022. The junta ordered their accounts to be frozen, their travel documents taken away, and their service vehicles, bodyguards, and assistants removed. Chief of Staff, that's General Ibrahima Sory, said on state television in the presence of around 20 other soldiers, no reason has yet been publicly given for their measures. And of course, joining me on the program right now to make sense of this is Lawrence Williams, a political analyst joining from Freetown, Sierra Leone, and of course, Dr. Ndubisi Christian Annie, senior researcher and project coordinator at the Institute for Security Studies. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, let me start off with you, Lawrence. Now, like many of those who have seized power in West Africa since 2020, this junta in Guinea is actually putting up a fight, according to it, against corruption, as its, forefront of its agenda. Do you actually see this happening with some of these moves?
Well, of course, normally when military officers take over, they will always advance reasons such as corruption, such as regionalism, such as constitutional bastardization, as among reasons for taking over reins of governance. And when they get into governance, it becomes very difficult for them to actually address those issues which give rise to the coup in the first place. And for what I've been seeing happening in Guinea, and looking at the fact that there is this transition agreement wherein the junta government was supposed to transition to a civilian rule within a 24-month period after agreeing with ECOWAS. And that should happen this 2024. And so for the government to now dismiss the interim government, it gives some rise to many questions about uncertainties as to whether the junta is really committed to the agreement to transition the country into civilian rule. However, for the fact that no reasons have been advanced whatsoever as to why the decision was taken to dissolve the interim government, and no reasons have been given as to why the passport and vehicles, bank accounts of those who were running the government have been frozen, then it becomes very much difficult for us to pinpoint as to what exactly the junta government is driving at. However, it also suggests that there could have been some form of corruption, but it is too early, in my opinion, to actually make such a statement.
Now, of course, I'd like to take Dr. Annie's reaction to this. But in addition, we've also seen that tensions have been recently reported between government members. And at the beginning of this month, at the capital, Conakry, we also witnessed a rare protest. Now, what does this reflect? Does this suggest lack of cohesion, particularly at the government level?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think just to also tap into what my colleague have said, that it is very key to understand that when governments begin to run out of ideas, there is different moves that have been taken to also boost that idea, to make sure that they show up control, they show up their support across the across the citizen class. So you can see the massive freezing of the account is a way of trying to say, okay, we're doing something about the issues of corruption and lack of growth that are happening, and the growing inflation that has been there. Well, to be frank, as in there has been inflation already going on even before the current junta came to power. But obviously, things have not gotten better for the local people on the ground, even though, like in 2022, they said that the inflation rate was reduced a little bit by a small margin. But when it comes down to what the people are facing on the ground, it remains a significant challenge. And that is what the protest is about. What has the current government done to kind of eradicate poverty, and then to grow investor confidence within the country, and to bring people to, invest and then have jobs. When you go to Guinea, one of the stark realities is that a lot of youth are unemployed. Well, it's a challenge across board, across West Africa. I think you just came out from the discussion in Nigeria on the Nigeria situation, on the hardships that are going on. But every country, specific on its own challenge, is reeling out of that challenge. And Guinea people want something different. And this move is a kind of a move that, when you remember, one of the false hopes that liberation movement did to us was, when they took on power, a lot of people began to run out of ideas. They thought it's just an easy thing of running a government. But it's about consensus, having different people on board, engaging different people, right? Unlike what the Guinea Junta is doing. It's mainly kind of thought that it has the solution to all the crises without providing any meaningful solution on the ground. So that is what we are seeing, that we cannot find a meaningful solution to the economic challenge. And the economy, if you can solve the economic challenge for the people, at least you've solved a major crisis. And then people will continue to support and put credibility on your governance.
I mean,
I see that move as a stark reality of trying to, get to show that, I'm doing something about issue of corruption.
All right, now talking about credibility, now under international pressure, Bangoura has promised to actually hand the reins of government back to elected civilians by the end of 2024. My question to you, Lawrence, is this: do you see this happening?
I really doubt it. If you have dissolved the interim government, which primarily was charged with the responsibility to run along with the transition agreement and implement all of those actions that could transform the country back to civilian rule, and then it casts a dark cloud of uncertainty as to whether indeed the junta is committed to that agreement. Also, one will also suggest that the actions of the junta administration is deliberately orchestrated to consolidate itself in power, and that there is no semblance or sign to suggest that the juntas are willing to relinquish power to an democratically elected civilian government. And it has become a problem, not just for the Guinean government. We see that happening in Niger. We see it happening in Burkina Faso and other places within the ECOWAS region, where we've witnessed democratic decline in the last 2 to 3 years. Even in Mali as well, we see these men in military fatigues consolidating themselves in power. And these stands they are taking go against what they actually told the people as to why they were taking over. I mean, you should actually be committed to ensure that you transition your country to civilian rule, granted that there were issues which prompted your taking over the reins of governance, even though it is also illegal for military men to actually...
all right, Lawrence. I mean, we would, of course, like to know Dr. Arnie's reaction to that. Do you see an election happening, towards the end of this year, that's 2024, within the country as promised by the current junta?
No, I also don't see that happening. And why? Because currently, this is a stepping stage to say, okay, no, there is a lot of chaos going in the country and it has to be addressed. But it's also just taking it a little bit further. It's also an affront on ECOWAS. Just saying that ECOWAS, you can really not do anything about what is happening within our country. And I think one major thing that kind of boosted the junta governments across, including Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, and then also the situation in Guinea, is that they realized that, if we stand our ground and also show a united front, that really ECOWAS cannot really do much. Also because a lot of countries are grappling with internal security, both security crises, internal economic crisis. So who really is there to have the moral grounds to go and say it wants to promote democracy when in their own countries, they're also facing democratic challenges. So what it's saying currently is that not ECOWAS can do much about it. And they also realize that within the power of things,
all right,
current regional dynamics, the UN, the African Union, a lot of them rely on ECOWAS to lead in terms of this transition. And ECOWAS is kind of having more limited perspectives on how to move this forward. So I don't see an election holding. If it has a goodwill to put in the election, then that will mean a massive commitment on their part.
All right, gentlemen. All right. We're pressed for time, but thank you so much for being on the program. Lawrence Williams, political analyst, joining from Freetown, Sierra Leone, and also Dr. Ndubisi Christian Annie, senior researcher and project coordinator at the Institute for Security Studies. Gentlemen, once again, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And that's a wrap on today's program. But before I go, it's important I say this. The opinions of our guests remains theirs and not that of News Central. Let me leave you with this word. Leadership is responsibility. There's no way to it. No more, no less. It's absolute responsibility. And you have the utmost, right, or the utmost responsibility to deliver. It's what you signed up for. So give the people what they want. My name is Dakbo Adigboye. Bye for now.